This is located in Bloomfield and East Orange, New Jersey. It's an older industrial/office complex. It was 60% tenanted when we purchased it, and tenanted by a cadre of corporations, some warehousing, a large research, development, flavor and fragrance company that we subsequently relocated to a large building we purchased for them in Carteret and redeveloped the building in Carteret to move that tenant to. You can see it's near Midtown Direct train station. The New Jersey Transit line borders the property. The Garden State Parkway borders the western side of the property. Very interesting on this talks about how history changes your circumstance. Right? When this complex was built, the New Jersey Transit line really was a freight line that was owned by Norfolk Southern Railroad. And it delivered goods and services here. This complex was built and developed by General Electric to be their boiler works factory, where they made electric motors for their boilers. The Garden State Parkway came through into construction in the 60s. As we all know, the Garden State Parkway, north of exit 100 or 95, I think, doesn't allow truck traffic. Rendered, quite frankly, an industrial establishment obsolete from a standpoint of, I can't get trucks there anymore, and it's a major highway. So that didn't seem to be an appropriate use for it any longer. Give you a sense on what that complex looked like and what it takes to adapt and repurpose something. You're looking at a complex that contained over 1 million square feet of 100-year-old space. The original plans on the building dated to 1897. The building went up between 1901 and 1904. And that's the original. Let's see how this thing works here, Sam. You're smarter than I, Sam, to get this pointer to work. There we go. This is the original building. Oh, I get green, he doesn't have it. This was the original constructed building, this L-shaped, six-story complex, all concrete construction, ceiling heights of 17-foot floor to floor, with the ground floor being 24 feet clear. The balance of this product, built sometime in the 40s and through the 60s and in various types of configurations, an original boiler house plant, and all situated on 14 acres of property. This is what it looks like when you start taking apart a building that you intend to adaptively reuse. We are constructing within this building 361 loft apartments. We had to demolish, and ultimately all this, we had to demolish 400,000 feet of large structure. Surprisingly so, this 100-year-old industrial site of over 14 acres was remarkably clean from an environmental standpoint. We have another similar project we'll start construction on in West Orange, 5 miles west of this project, Thomas Edison's historic battery factory. That's a similar sized building on 5 acres where we've had $4.5 million of environmental remediation. On 4 acres or 4.5 acres, on this site of 14 acres, we have $500,000. So we lucked out. The next stage you see, one of the things that has to be done, well, despite the fact that we had a Midtown Direct train station here, we are still, as Sam points out, a commuter nation, a commuter state. We have the Garden State Parkway here. People who rent apartments still drive cars. We had to build a garage. Now I'll talk about cooperation here from the municipal standpoint. I said Bloomfield and East Orange because yes, in fact, we like to beat ourselves to death, not only dealing with one municipality, but two, the property line between the two towns went right down the middle of it. That took requirement of approvals and permits between two municipalities, negotiations with two municipalities over items like long-term tax abatements, permitting, who's going to do the inspections. And we, to both East Orange's and Mayor Bowser, who I know is a trustee, I'll try not to point that green in your eye, is East Orange was tremendously cooperative, and Bloomfield was tremendously cooperative. The two towns got together and said, you know what, let's divvy this up. And Bloomfield took the inspections for the site and the garage, and East Orange said, we'll handle everything in the building. So we did get tremendous cooperation from that standpoint. Now the approvals was another thing. It took 2.5 years. And one of the arguments that we used when local population people may have showed up and complained that we were going to kill them with traffic because we were going to add not only 300 apartments but 180 townhomes on this land. I think the quote I used to them, well, would you rather the smells of coming from someone's kitchen or the smells that come from somebody's smokestack, an industrial smokestack? And, you know, it still seems to take gumption on the part of municipal employees and planners and councilmen to stand up to the broader public and say, this is what's good for the town and this is what's good for the site. If you don't like traffic, move from New Jersey. You live in New Jersey. I want to talk about old is not obsolete. This brick is the original brick of the building. It's over 112 years old and we're reusing it. It's been cleaned, it's been repointed. The concrete is all the original concrete of the building. Except for these little sills, they were too badly degraded. We actually had to replace with precast, our own precast sills. We can talk this size better. Again, just to show you another look at that site and how massive this building is. We took a 6-story building and turned it into an 8-story building in 3 feet less height. We took the first 24-foot clear section that's down here, we added, you can see right in here, an interstitial floor. So the first floor of apartments is actually a new second floor of the building. We marketed and are marketing this building to that new millennial type of individual, that echo boomer. We're near the train station. We're near Newark. We're near educational centers in Newark. We're easy transportation to Manhattan. We're also north-south access on the Garden State Parkway. The average size unit in here is 835 square feet. But on that second floor, we put in a couple of amenities that people want to see today. Every floor in this building has its own storage locker setup. So we have 0.7 storage lockers per unit, right? So 70% of the units all could have a storage locker on your own floor. Now that's 4x4, 4x6, 6x8, just like if you walked into U-Storage. We have a rooftop outdoor deck overlooking Manhattan, with Manhattan views to the east. We have a 2-story health club of 4,000 feet inside the building. We have a library, kitchenette, dining area inside the building, and a 20-seat large screen movie theater in terms of additional amenities. Yes, green is important, and staying green and staying apart. So we get a lot of lead points here for adaptive reuse, but we also put in things like bicycle storage on the ground floor. This is what a unit looks like. We'll begin delivery of the first units in the end of September, but take a look at the size of that window, the ceiling height, exposed ductwork. This is a true loft living space in a 850 square foot unit here. They give you a sense on what it takes to repurpose. Let's just take a look at it. Again, a couple of these themes. We acquired it in the spring of 2005. We're delivering units in winter of 2012. It's a lifetime. To be a developer in New Jersey, you need patience. Well, maybe the only thing more overrated than development in New Jersey is natural childbirth. We had 2 townships involved, the DEP was involved, New Jersey Transit was involved, and as Sam indicated in his presentation, we got tremendous cooperation out of the state, despite the fact that Gil was no longer the Secretary of Commerce. Yes, transit, along with some help from Alex DeGrosse and some applications that we had made for some grant money, transit actually came up with $2.5 million to redo, partially start redoing the station at Watsesing, and to create that, knowing that ridership was going to increase dramatically from this location. We have 361 apartments and 180 townhomes. We'll start for-sale townhome construction in the spring. The market seems to be coming back strongly for sale housing, again, within a price range. The cost of just the apartment building is over $96 million. We're not delivering the final townhome on this site probably until 2017, 12 years after we initially acquired the project and got going on it. This is something important. Change takes time and money, right? When we first got the call on this property, we had looked at it like everybody else in New Jersey, driven up and down the parkway 100 times. There was a big number on the building, phone number that said cheap space, and you could call it. I called it a dozen times, a couple times a year, and to see if they would sell the building, because it looked to me like a great repurposing opportunity, and no one ever returned my phone call. Until one day a broker called me in early 2005 and said, do you want to buy 1 million square feet of industrial on the Garden State Parkway? I said, yes, right away. I said, how much? And he said, he won't take a penny less than 20 million. I said, tell him okay. No, you can't buy land in northern New Jersey in the Garden State Parkway for that kind of pricing. This brings up a question to sort of Sam's proposal. Again, change takes time and money. Adaptive reuse is an expensive proposition. We talk about things like contributory value, right? How much does the exoskeleton of that building contribute towards, ultimately, towards the value of what you intend to do? And generally speaking, it costs you more money. If we could have scraped this building and knocked it down and demoed it and repurposed this site with 4-story stick-built housing, it would have been a lot cheaper. But you don't get what you got with that. 17-foot ceilings, a unique building, all concrete construction. So there is a labor of love that's involved in some of these projects, and those types of things need to be considered. Let's talk about a repurposing of an office facility in Parsippany, New Jersey, a market that on Gil's slide, he showed a vacancy rate of some 30% or so. I'm here to tell you that over the course of the last 24 years, through various partnerships and times, I've been an owner of almost 50% of the office inventory in the Parsippany market. I have made money on every single investment in Parsippany, so don't let someone tell you you can't make money in New Jersey office investment. 399 Jefferson Road, I made money on this building twice because we bought it and sold it twice. And that's a theme that we'll talk about here right now in terms of doubling down. The intersection, go back, got our little green pointer, intersection of 287 and 80. The federal highway system. One of the themes moving on today is accessibility. That accessibility is making you more accessible to a wider labor pool that you can get to. That's putting greater importance on federal highway system access as opposed to state highway system access down here in Parsippany, southern portion of Route 10. You see the same thing happening in markets like Princeton. There's a move in Princeton off of Route 1 onto 295/95. A very unique building. It had 7 per 1,000 parking. Couldn't get that. If I went to your town today and said, I want to build a building, I want to put 7 per 1,000 parking on your site, you'd throw me out pretty quick. We thought it had inherent value in the parking, both from a standpoint as we could expand the building and get FAR, if not just appeal to a tenant that needed more efficient space to put tenants in the building and could actually park it. This is what that building looks like when you put 180,000 feet under one roof. We did a couple of things here in 2003 when we bought it for $20 million. Merck came to us in 2005 and said, you know, we'd love to stay in the building, but we have a problem with our union. In fact, not only are we leaving this building, but we're leaving New Jersey. They gave us about a year's notice. Within a year, we marketed the building. We sold it in 2006 to HSBC for $34 million, making a tidy profit. HSBC then took all this that you see on the building now, stripped it down. They stripped out the inside of the building. They went to Parsippany. They received approvals to expand the building by 50,000 feet out the side. They were going to make this a Tier 1 data center, disaster recovery center, and check processing facility. It took them 2 years to work through the township's approval process, design, development, and plans. And in 2008, they were ready to go at the perfect timing for the financial collapse. They pulled the plug on the project shortly thereafter in 2009 and rang my phone and said, hey, that building you sold us in 2006, would you mind buying it back? And I said, well, I think we could, but probably not for what you paid. They said, well, what did you pay? I said something like, I think we paid $10 million today. And they said, oh, you're crazy, you're blah, 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 and a lot of expletives in between. And went off to market it to other people. They called back 9 months later and said, well, you're still good for that $10 million. And we said, thank God we didn't pay you $10 million. The market's gotten a lot worse. I think we're around $7 million. A couple more expletives and a hung up phone call occurred at that point in time. Another 6 or 9 months went past. Another phone call came back and said, are you guys still good for the 7? We said, no, we're not. They said, how much can you pay and how quickly can you close? And we said $5 million all cash, 21 days. Now, this is a building in 2006 bought for $34 million. They probably invested $3 to $4 million in carry cost plans, demolition and whatnot. They're in for $38 or $39 million. And that's what the inside of the building looked like when we bought it back in 2010. Within the first 6 months of owning it in 2010, we signed a lease for half the building with Pinnacle Foods Corporation as a new corporate headquarters. Pinnacle Foods looked at this building, and the way we looked at this building from a standpoint, we don't think large floor plate buildings work, necessarily speaking, when you talk about suburban office campuses. We think that's one of the problems. We'll get to that point a little further on. But this building was very unique in that it had high ceilings, it had heavy power, and it had an extremely efficient ability from a usability standpoint. The efficiency factor in this building, the way we were able to lay it out for the 2 tenants we put in here, was 99%. That means a 1% loss factor. Pinnacle Foods or Biomet, which is the other tenant that went in here, and I'll give you a couple of issues on Biomet. We won the Creative Deal of the Award a year by NAOP for the Biomet transaction this past year. Pinnacle Foods Corporation this past year won Inc. magazine's coolest office space in the world competition for a single-story office building in Parsippany. We'll get to a little bit more than that. This you're seeing is what does it take to do this. This was an expansion of the building. We needed to create a headquarters opportunity at the back of the building. We leased the front of the building to Pinnacle Foods. They had all the road frontage. We needed to get identity in here for Biomet, which is another corporate headquarters, use it for their spine and bone division, and they needed additional space, but they also needed higher image look. So we were able, because of the FAR, to expand this building. Again, that building has 18-foot ceiling heights for office space. This is what the building looks like now, sort of completed with its new nose on the rear of the building, but you can see how Jefferson Road runs here, and this space straight down the middle line is where Pinnacle is, and then Biomet has the back of the building in here. Both tenants are very unique, and this is a theme that is occurring in New Jersey, unification of your operations, right? Tenants want to unify their businesses and their business strategies. Both tenants in this building have 30% of their space, between 25 and 30% of their space as research and development, incorporating that R&D processes directly within their office functions, because sales needs to tell R&D what their customers are interested in purchasing. R&D needs to design something that sales understands how to sell. Management needs to oversee it all, and finance needs to figure out how to pay for it. Give you an idea, again, the building looks like this today, granite and glass. This is what the interior office space looks like. Very similar, it looks like they shopped from Dean's book of furniture. It's nice that he continues to make money as an academician. Again, communal space, skylights cut into the building, high ceilings, lots of lighting, open areas for community. Again, community space inside here. Cafeterias, soft places to meet, talk, exchange ideas. Again, in here, this is Pinnacle space. That's a fireplace. Right? The high ceilings really enabled us and their architects to design something cool and fresh and neat. Again, we can do a lot with great architecture. We have great architects, we have great engineers, we have terrific contractors in the state. You can do a lot with a building. It takes time and it takes money. And again, you see more of this space in here. But this is someone has to lose and someone has to win. This is not a game where everybody's going to come out a winner. And the reality of this is, you look at HSBC as an example, or you look at Lucent, Alcatel-Lucent in Sam's example. Sam was able to do what he could do for Bear because he bought the complex for some $25 a foot, somewhere in that range, and was able to reinvest the capital to do that. We were able to do what we did here, from 34 to 5 million. We spent $30 million on tenant installation costs and expansion of the building. Right? We couldn't do that on an economic basis if we couldn't have bought it for $5 million. So part of the issue here has to be, we have to reset the basis of some of these properties. And for Merck's position out in White House Junction, that's a more complicated situation. But yes, they're going to take an extreme loss on that property. Who's going to buy it? what you're gonna do with it. It's a whole nother role. That's why we get paid the money we get paid to figure those things out. But this zero-sum game, or non-zero-sum game, some of the winners and losers, the problem that we want to start asking now is, we know we have obsolete real estate, but you can't begin to fix it until you define why you have it. And I think some of the work that Dean Hughes is doing, I think, is terrific to get us thinking about, the demographic shifts and why we have the problem that we have. I want to point out just a couple of slides that get us to the understanding of why Prism is doing what we're doing with multifamily adaptive reuse, transit-related reuse, and office repurposing that we're doing. This is a story of the changing face of the labor market, not badly designed buildings. If you looked in 1984, the average annual salary of an employee in New Jersey was $26,500. In 2012, it's $82,000. Now, you could do the compound annual growth rate. You'll figure out that that's somewhere north of 4.5%. And then you say, oh, well, CPI. Well, it's almost double the rate of CPI during that same period. So it's not that we're just keeping pace. That's not the natural rate of inflation. Something else was going on here. Are we paying people a lot more money to work, or are we getting a different kind of worker, which is really the answer to the question. This very lengthy one, I'm going to point out just a couple of things. We restacked this from the previous presentation, but here's what I want to show you that's going on here. Look at this, office and administrative support occupations. Broken down in New Jersey, this is 2001 was the earliest time that the BLS could go back to calculate this level of detail. We've lost 103,000 jobs. The number one job loss in New Jersey since 2001 has been administrative labor and office service occupations. 103,000. Look at that. Production operations, manufacturing only lost 70,000 jobs. And I think if you went back further than 2001, that number magnifies. But that number was also a low average salary rate. Let's go down to that, which is growing in New Jersey. All right, legal occupations, they grew a little bit, but look at their salary increases here. Management occupations, computer mathematical occupations, and these growth factors that we've got down here, healthcare practitioners, business and financial services. Everyone says, well, financial services is down well over since 2001. Financial services, insurance, real estate is still up. It's still growing. New Jersey is turning from a middle wage labor, heavy, dense office space, key punch process operator into a value-added, high-dollar output labor market. We are creating things in New Jersey again, and we are employing those people that innovate, think, and create.